Keep the necklace. Keep the necklace. Keep the necklace! Whew, thank God. I knew I could trust Bill Nye the Science Guy. Wednesday night quarterbacks, internet, my name is Peridiam, and welcome to 5 times Survivor Players Destroyed Their Own Game 2.0. Similar to part 1, if you haven't seen that video, we are covering exactly what the video title says. So, let's get on with the spiraling. Despite a lot of these Survivor players not winning the game after making game-ending destructive moves, it needs to be said, even players who have won the game are just as capable at dropping the ball. Or, in this case, the idol. In Season 40, Winners at War, the 2-time winner Sandra Diaz-Twine, the Queen of Survivor, completely fumbled the bag after she made a risky move that cost her the game. In the pre-merge at the swap, Sandra was holding an idol that had a shelf life. Normally idols last the entire game, but her idol was only good for one more tribal council. Sandra's tribe lost the challenge and was headed to tribal, and she wanted to leverage the idol for all it was worth. The target was on Denise, and the votes were going her way, but Sandra wanted Jeremy out of the game more. So Sandra approached Denise with a deal. Denise, I will give you my idol to play on yourself, and you vote for Jeremy. Everyone else is going to vote for you, but you're going to play the idol, it won't matter. By a vote of 1-0, Jeremy is gone. In exchange, Sandra received 2 fire tokens from Denise, which was a special currency on the season used to buy stuff. Don't worry about it. It's kind of like coins in Mario Party. Wait, is Jeff Toad? So Denise takes the deal, but she doesn't really want Jeremy out, and she doesn't tell Sandra this. So if Denise doesn't want to vote out Jeremy, then who does Denise want out? Later that night at Tribal Council, Denise plays the idol on herself and casts a vote for Sandra, making the vote 1-0, and Sandra goes home. And to make matters worse, Denise already had an idol in her pocket before Sandra approached her. Sandra didn't know about this, although whether or not Denise was going to play it on herself is another story. Sandra tipped Denise off on the vote, gave her an idol to protect herself from the vote, and in turn was voted out.
I have an idol left that's good for only one more tribal council, and I have 0 fire tokens.
Your name is gonna get written down by all of us. You decide which one of the 2 boys goes.
This is not a selfless act. There's something in this for her, and what I think is in it for her is I stay in the game and her hands are clean. I could make a move that literally for the first time in my Survivor career feels like it could be game-changing. Jeff, can you give me a minute?
Sure.
Are you kidding me right now?
I found something along the way today.
This is a hidden immunity idol. Any votes cast for Denise will not count. Denise does not count. Denise does not count. Denise does not count. Denise does not count. 1 vote left. 8th person voted out as Survivor, Winners at War.
Let's talk about another blunder of a different variety. From Sandra, who could not win a challenge, to Drew Christie from season 29, San Juan del Sur, who opted to throw a challenge to vote out the weakest player on his tribe. Drew Christie, the man, the myth, the legend, is a 4-episode meme in the Survivor community, as he is rather notorious for this colossal fall from grace, with quotation marks. His tribe had yet to lose a challenge all season, and so in episode 4, he decided to take the reins and get his tribe to throw a challenge to vote out one of the women. The men outnumbered the women 5-4, and Drew felt like he was insulated well enough in his tribe to make this work. The problem for Drew was that he was kind of a douche, and a lot of people took issue with how he operated and spoke to some of the women, and on top of that, he was just really cocky. So Drew concocts this plan, throws the challenge, attempts to whip up a vote out of then invisible Kelly Wentworth, and fails spectacularly. Instead, the 4 women loop in Jeremy and turn the tables on Drew, voting him out in a juicy blindside. Drew didn't need to do any of this, but his ego was never gonna let him stop.
I'm gonna throw the game. The next game, throw it.
Are you considering that?
Yeah, there's snakes on our team that have to go.
If I don't want to win, we're not going to win. And that's what makes me the kingpin of my tribe.
Basically, I'm a badass and a manipulator of this game.
Drew gets his vision in his head, and he's like the king of it, and he has to be the one to like give the final decision. And I think people are getting over that really, really quickly.
With Drew, there's no throwing back and forth. He's just like, Kelly's going home, and that's it. And it pissed me off.
Getting rid of Drew, that would be so sweet if we can pull this off. He's so annoying.
Let's get Kelly out tonight, and then all these bitches don't know what to do other than come to us. Trust me, guys. They're gonna... Trust me, count on it.
Fourth person voted out of Survivor Blood versus Water. Drew. It's 4, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
Some seasons of Survivor feature players who fall backwards into a power position, and then we immediately see why they were never in that kind of position in the first place. In this case, I am talking about Christy from Season 6, The Amazon. When, in the final 6, she found herself as the swing vote of the tribe between two sides and wasn't sure which way she wanted to go. The setup for the vote was that there was a group of 3, Rob, Matt, and Butch, against a duo in Jenna and Heidi. Christy wasn't really a fan of these two women, but also understood that she may need them for like a vote or two. Did she really want to work with Machete Matt, the guy who just sits there and stares at you and sharpens the machete, or Shifty Rob for another vote? Rob's plan was to vote out either Jenna or Heidi, and because Jenna won immunity, the target was Heidi. But they needed Christy for the 4th vote to send Heidi packing 4-2. And Christy was now holding all the cards and kinda reveling in the power. She could tie the vote against the guys or go with them and vote out one of the evil stepsisters. So, what does Christy do? She waffles, and she does so openly. She tells Rob that she's not sure what she wants to do. You know what, Rob? She's gonna think about it. And so Rob sits there and goes, what if we just turn the tables on Christy? Don't need her vote to vote her out. Rob approaches Jenna and Heidi with a truce, an olive branch, a ceasefire, and targets Christy instead. And what we end up seeing is that Christy is voted out 4-2, where she ultimately chose to vote with Rob's original plan, but Rob couldn't bank on that, and so out she goes. The bar was low, and all she had to do was nod her head and say yes.
You're still gonna vote for Heidi tonight?
I guess so.
I guess so.
You know, I don't know. The question is, who can I go farther with? What can get me to be the sole survivor?
Still in the air and still juggling in my head. And I think when I have the pen in my hand and that paper, that is gonna be the decision.
Would you just want to make this really easy on everybody and vote out Christy tonight?
You're willing to do that?
Oh, she's still up in the air. If you and Jen and Christy vote for me, I'm done and my game's over. This is the gamble.
Honestly, right now, I think I am in the driver's seat. I make the final decision.
11th person voted out of the tribe, the 4th member of our jury, Christy.
Speaking of saying less, let's talk about the demise of Corinne on Season 26, Caramoan, Fans vs. Favorites 2. The Merge Boot. Corinne was voted out 7-5, where the Favorites tribe plus Sherry dumped all their votes on her and sent her out of the game. On paper, this looks like a typical vote of 2 alliances opposing each other, so what happened to where Corinne blew up her own game? The initial plan going into this vote was that the 8 favorites were going to vote out one of the 4 fans, and because the numbers were 8-4, the favorites put together a plan to split the vote 4-4 in the event an idol was played. Corinne, meanwhile, got on the same page as Malcolm, another favorite, and wanted to flip the script on the favorites alliance. Break up the big, happy family of 8 and seize control of the game. Malcolm had 2 fans on his side, Reynold and Eddie, meanwhile Corinne had another, Michael, giving them 5 solid votes. If the favorites were going to split their votes 4-4, this block of 5 with Corinne and Malcolm would have easily been able to seize the day. Malcolm also believed he had Eric in his pocket, which meant they would even have 6 people, although Eric actually wasn't in his pocket at all. But Eric wasn't necessary for this plan to go through. Corinne already had the numbers anyway, and all it took was a basic head count to realize this, especially given she knew the plan was to split the votes. But then Corinne decided to keep going by looping in Dawn, a player she had connected with since day 1 and wanted to include her in the blind side. And this is where Corinne got too ahead of herself. I don't want to be too hard on her here because while she did still likely need a 6th vote for the next round at the final 11, if Malcolm believed he had Eric, the numbers were settled. And even then, if they only had 5, they could have tried to work something out after the blindside, not before. As a wise man once said, tomorrow you make your apologies, tonight you make your move. Dawn took the information Corinne gave her and ran Corinne's blindside to the rest of the Favorites Alliance, and the jig was up. From where Corinne wasn't being targeted at all and was not going home, she now had nearly the entire Favorites Alliance against her, and she was voted out with 7 votes to her name. From the moment she spoke to Malcolm, she only had to do nothing to succeed, and she couldn't.
Thank God for Malcolm. We're gonna vote together on the first vote, and then we're gonna blindside the favorites. I've yet to really be involved in a blindside. It's time. Blindside time.
the split vote between Eddie and Reynolds, thereby sending one of the two power bases home.
That's like 6 people. Malcolm, you.
Eric.
If Eric's in too, then that's like 7. And she wants to blindside Philip. And then the rest of the favorites. And she's got the fans to do it. Those guys are in her back pocket now. I promise you, if I had numbers to vote her out tonight, I'd vote her out.
I love that. If we're on the wrong side of the numbers, we're dead. Corinne's freaking calling every vote.
I'm kind of up for a little blindside.
9th person voted out of Survivor fans versus favorites. Corinne, need to bring me your torch.
Which takes us to number 5. And man, if doing nothing wasn't the best strategy with this video, I don't know what was in this case. Believe it or not, I actually don't talk about this upcoming move very often. I once put together a montage of every time in Survivor it's been brought up, and of course, I am talking about Eric giving up his immunity necklace at the final 5 of season 16 Micronesia fans versus favorites. From one fans versus favorites to the next, except this time Eric was on the wrong side of the vote. This is by far and away the most referenced move in the history of the show. There's an entire retrospective article that was written over 10 years later about it. Eric was in a 4v1 situation at the final 5, and he went on to win immunity, meaning he was safe until the final 4. I also gotta mention, it's pretty amusing how the final immunity challenge had him putting together a puzzle that said, guaranteed final 4. Fate was cruel that day. The 4 women twist and turn Eric around, and because he had lied and double-crossed several of them, they guilt-tripped him into believing that if he gave up his immunity necklace, he would earn all of their respect back and likely stood a good chance to win over the jury. Which wasn't really the case, but Eric didn't know what to believe. He was 36 days deep into starvation and he felt bad. He wanted his ally Natalie to trust him. He believed Amanda would vote out Parvati. After all, was Eric really such a big threat that they would need to like wring his arm this much? Because if he didn't give up his necklace to Natalie, she was toast. Which was true, she got voted out in the next round anyway, but Eric fell for the lies, and at Tribal Council, he made one of the most self-destructive moves ever. He gave up his guaranteed spot in the final 4, took off his necklace, handed it to Natalie, only to have the 4 women vote him out not long after. It's one of the only votes in all of Survivor where every vote is shown to the audience before Jeff reveals them. Eric had all the power in the game that round. He was on a 3-episode immunity streak. He was poised to probably make it to the final 2 at that rate, and then the walls came crumbling down.
This is where it gets funny and tricky. You give me your necklace.
I'm not even going to consider that.
Just hear me out.
I want to give individual immunity to Natalie.
Natalie is now safe from the vote. Everybody else is fair game, and it is time to vote.
I don't even know what to say, but thank you.
You know, my mother always told me, you may not be able to beat him with these all the time, but you can always beat him with this.
13th person voted out and the 6th member of our jury, Eric. That's 3, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
You guys drive me crazy.
And those are 5 times Survivor players destroyed their own games 2.0. What another train wreck of a video this was. Let me know what you think about these 5 moments and of any other destructive moves I could talk about. A huge thank you to my patrons for giving me your immunity necklace. I promise I am not voting any one of you out. I swear I will see you next week. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to protect what's yours on your way out. And I will see you in the next one once I say we stick to the plan.
Right now the plan is split votes. Me, John, and Jacqueline are voting for Keith. But if I flip and Keith and I both vote Alec, Alec would go home instead. Oh my God, I could totally flip the entire game. The thing is, I don't know if it's even worth it me getting in trouble with my alliance. So I'm gonna have to make a decision, I guess, tonight. Ultimately, it's just deciding if I have the balls or not.
It's an amazing plan, but it has to be stuck to.
11th person voted out and the 5th member of our jury, Alec. Need to bring me your torch.